Hello, folks, and welcome to LPD News. I'm your host, Lou White. Today on LPD News, we'd like to discuss a key aspect of the makeup of an effective 21st century global leader. Character is defined as the complex of mental and ethical traits marking and often individualizing a person, group, or nature. Everyone has their own specific character, as well as a set of morals and ethics that lie within the character. But once you're put in a place of power, that is when many people's character is tested most. Today, we've brought together a group of our very own LPD News correspondents to discuss the use and misuse of power in various current events across the world. As many of you may know, there are serious uprisings going on within the governments and populations of Ukraine and Venezuela, and these situations are very pertinent to our discussion on power. Now let's send it over to Nasser, our panel
Thanks,
curator.
Louis. So on today's show, we will be particularly talking about the 2014 Venezuela protests in addition to the Crimea crisis that is going on, in addition to the 2014 Venezuela protests. Quickly, before we begin and open it up the floor to our panelists, I want to debrief the viewers at home on what's going on in both countries. Particularly after trying to, but failing to impeach the president of the Ukraine, the citizens of this country went into an uproar as they felt their inalienable rights were being denied. Russian President Vladimir Putin stepped in and claimed that the impeachment process that was taken upon the citizens of Ukraine was unfair, and subsequently he went on to appoint his own president for Ukraine and really just overthrew the complete government of Ukraine. Before the impeachment, both countries were particularly disputing over the Crimean Peninsula as to who would eventually get the rights for that peninsula moving forward. In Venezuela, it's a little bit different story. It's not as politically based. It's more of a huge uprising of what's going on as far as the citizens are concerned. There's a lot of inflation going on and a huge, tremendous scarcity of resources, and the citizens are violently protesting that. So let's swing it over to our correspondent, Brandon, who's going to give us a little bit more color as to what's going on in Venezuela in more detail. Brandon.
Thanks. Well, in Venezuela, a lot of anti-government protests have been going on. When Hugo Chavez's government fell due to his recent death to his battle with cancer, many citizens engaged into an anti-government protest that's been shaking Venezuela for a month. Mm-hmm. The rebellion of the Venezuelan youth demanding the end of Nicolas Maduro's presidency has brought to the forefront the nature of the regime that can be defined as like a highly corrupt state supported by Cuban military forces and Colombian drug cartels.
Sure.
They've had with Venezuela a connection for a very long time, and it's now turning into something very defamed and not sitting well with the citizens of Venezuela.
Sure.
The power struggle has led to a large public protest in Plaza Altamira recently that resulted in the death of a National Guardsman. Mm-hmm. There have been a total of 25 deaths related to these protests, including 4 National Guardsmen in total. Mm-hmm. The new president, President Maduro, as mentioned before, he's reached out to the U.S. government now, during a televised speech, attempting to plead to the U.S., try to send out a U.S. emissary to handle this protest that's been going on and settle this crisis, even though some may say that he's blamed the U.S. for some of the negligence of the human rights in South America.
Right.
So that's what's been going on in most of Venezuela.
Right. Okay, great. And that's really particularly interesting as far as what relates to what's going on in Ukraine, and we're going to swing it over to Morris right now. If you can talk a little bit about Putin and his involvement, would you say that it's more, he's leading from a more positional standpoint as far as power is concerned, or from a more personal standpoint, or maybe even both? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. Honestly, I would say that it's both.
Okay.
As the president of Russia, Putin knew that he could strategically position himself with his very strong government to overthrow that of the Ukrainians.
Right.
But he also knew that due to him being a charismatic leader, he knew that he could do this with the personal power he had as well.
Wow. Yeah. And that's great. And that's all we have for today's segment. You say classy LPD. This is LPD News.